Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home. I'm Jenelle Riley, Deputy Awards and Features Editor at Variety. And with me now is quadruple threat showrunner, creator, writer-director, executive producer, and actress Natasha Lyonne, who stars as Nadia in Russian Doll. Welcome. Actually, I listed more than 4 jobs. You're more than a quadruple threat. You're like an octagonal threat.
Exactly. And I'm glad that we're starting with that. So let's talk about what that means. It's funny because it's always like, gosh, how do you do all these things? And I think I see it as one gig, which is you just got to hold, you have to hold the show. And it just so happens that, she's in a lot of the frames. So it's really helpful in a way to be able to understand how the whole thing is architected. So I always just see it as like one, just make the show.
Okay, but you're not committed to doing craft services yet, right? There are some things you let other people do.
It's an incredibly collaborative show, actually. I think, are those my notifications? Those are mine, and I'm sorry. And I tried.
It's very in the moment. I love it.
I wrote "Do not disturb." I emailed the ghost of Steve Jobs this morning and I said, please do not disturb. I have important stuff today. And I got no response and here we are and I'm so sorry. But I'm happy to be here. But it's wildly collaborative actually. And I think it's just this incredible team. And it's like, we really try to craft an environment where we're all on the same page because, the ideas are big and we like to keep it, also funny and in the moment and alive. I would say from an acting perspective, what's so extraordinary about, the privilege of like being in your own writer's room, let alone, leading your own writer's room on some level is, you really understand all the moments in between the moments. So not just the sort of switches in the scene on a micro level, but often as an actor, and of course I've been in so many really terrible things. I mean, I've been doing this for 35 years and I feel like maybe there's like maybe 10 things that are really worth watching. And often I would see like an ellipses or something and think, gosh, I really need to nail this sort of stutter stop that's scripted. And surely they knew exactly what they intended when they ended this sentence with ... And of course, now as a writer, I see that often, we just don't know how to end the sentence or something. And more than that, as sort of a, manager of the budget or something, I know that we simply had to remove scenes because, to drop page count or locations or something changed or an actor's availability or whatever. And even though that scene is omitted, it's really helpful to still be able to build a bridge internally for the character because I know what the omit was. Mm-hmm. And then as the director, it's really easy to just, on the fly, kind of improvise that little thing that we had to cut in order to fill in that space. Or even in the edit, I'll often, sit there. Todd Downing is our wonderful editor, also from season 1. And Alex Buono is our wonderful producing director this season, who along with me, it's just the 2 of us directing this year. And we'll sit there. And also I would do this in season 1 with Leslie Headland, our brilliant co-creator. And that's also Amy Poehler co-created. But, both times we would sit in the edit and I would just use like either a microphone or the iPhone and just kind of fill stuff in, as needed. So there's a lot of, I think, gifts for the actor that come along with it.
Well, I wanted to say first, congratulations on season 2 of Russian Doll, but also thank you because as someone who is such a big fan of the first season, you're always happy to see a second season, but you also get a little nervous. Like, can it ever be as good? And I know I've told you this in person, but I think I might like the second season even more, which is crazy because I really love the first season. First season was, time loops. This season is time travel. Where did you kind of hit upon the idea for that for the second season and what excited you about that storyline?
Yeah, well, just also thank you so much. It really means a lot to me because, God, we worked like mad dogs pushing the outer limits of what was possible, and it's, this show is like the great love of my life. I just, I don't know, somebody like, just, it's so wild that, we're now all in direct communication. It's like, as people are watching it, they write stuff and they're like, this is really helping me with all my stuff. And it's like, it means a lot to me. I really, really care. And so I guess the first season, like you're saying, is asking the question, how do I stop dying? And the second season is asking the question, how do I start living? And both seasons do deal with the nature of time. Season 1 is more directly mortality. Season 2 is sort of on the nature of this kind of hourglass that's slowly slipping away. And I always think it's funny, there's this writer who I just love, this guy, his name is Ted Chiang. And
Arrival.
I love that guy. He's maybe my favorite, writer going. He's, of course, wrote the short story that Arrival, the movie, was based on. And I got on the phone on a Zoom with Ted, and I was really like going nuts during the edit, just being like, what on earth would I do next? I got to connect with this guy. And he was willing to meet with me. And I said, what's that all about? That aging is this weird game where, you're a young rebel and you're like, you have all these feelings and you're like, God, life is too much. I need a way out. What can I put in my system that sort of like takes me out of this experience? And all of a sudden it's like, you're past 40 and you see that time slipping away. And you're like, despite it all, how do I stay on the bus? Like, are they really going to take it from me? And, that duality is like so much, I think, the nature of also just the arts or the global sort of human experience, of that it feels so awkward so often, and yet there's so much, beauty to the thing. So yeah, I guess, I don't know, on an elevator pitch sort of comedy level, it was just always funny, the idea that season 1 was Groundhog's Day, so let's do season 2 Quantum Leap, but on a deeper level, that's baked into the title of the show. It's Russian Doll. It's, you want to go into this kind of onion and peel back the next layer. And, first things first is kind of, you got to stop dying and sort of taking yourself out. Alan says, I figured out my first death. I killed myself, and Nadia is running around, this like defiant lone wolf, and running into taxis, and they find this connection and a way out. And I guess I really started thinking about season 2, I'm always writing, I guess, almost from like 5 years later, like 5 years after I've really been in the thick of that feeling. And, it's, people always say it's like such a personal show, and it is, but it's less the specifics of like my mom or my life or this. It's more like a sort of like theological, spiritual, philosophical excursion or something. That's where it gets very personal to me, is, after you kind of show up for life and you become a participating member of society, you're posed with these bigger questions about how to actually, be present and show up for those responsibilities, how to show up for, like, suddenly the call comes from inside the house and you're an adult and you're not even ready. And, the child becomes the caretaker, for Ruth. And I think that for Nadia is really this, like, get me out of here. Like, where's the next adventure? But of course, life has that thing where it, drags you kicking and screaming, or you can go willingly. But, Nadia and Alan are going to get what they need to know, whether they like it or not, through whatever crazy game they're into.
When you mentioned Quantum Leap, I'm embarrassed I hadn't thought of that comparison before, because I love that show. And now I'm trying to imagine Scott Bakula jumping into his own mother. Because in this season, you introduce Nadia's mother, trying not to say your mother, played by Chloe Sevigny. Can you talk about how not only that story came about, but getting Chloe for the show, because she's so fantastic, and I believe you're pretty close in real life.
She might be more than my best friend. She might have actually moved into my sister at this point. It was just her wedding, and yeah, I'm pretty sure that maybe she became my sister along the way. I think, I guess I often think about Mike Lee and how he does it. I think when I was a kid, I remember loving that movie Naked so much with David Thewlis and the great, I guess she passed away really early. The great Catherine Cartledge is in that movie. And, I would, I love David Thewlis's character in that so much. Like, I love the idea of an ambling kind of philosopher as a lead. And so I would like read up about it a lot and, discover that they worked on it sort of collaboratively for years and they really kind of know each other. And I guess also as a sort of like self-taught, I'm a film school dropout. I dropped out of Tisch. I was going to be a film and philosophy double major. And I was like, great, I'll sort of learn about all this philosophy and then I'll turn it into jokes and I'll write these movies and I can be in them if I want. And I'll get all these, great cinematographers and we'll make a sort of Bergman comedies and it'll be fun. And instead I dropped out and I really spent all my time at like the film forum and reading. I was very obsessed with this. I had this like weird bound manuscript of Cassavetes on Cassavetes. And I would just like read it over and over. And I would read like Sidney Lumet making movies. And I would read up on like, Mike Lee and how he did it. And with the Cassavetes thing, I was really struck with that too, of like, you build a troupe and you kind of, it's like, all right, now listen, this is what we're doing, Jenna Rollins. This is what we're doing, Peter Falk. This is what we're doing, Ben Gazzara. And we're going to do it in all these incarnations. Or, I would see it with Fassbender and he would do that. And I, with Hannah Shigula. And I think I fell for that model. So it's not just Chloe, it's also like, I know Brendan Sexton III forever, who plays Horse. And I know, Waris Alawalia, who you've also seen in a lot of Wes Anderson movies, is like my old roommate. And, Rebecca Henderson who plays Lizzie. It's her birthday today. She's Leslie's wife. So, we were all tight. And Greta Lee, who plays Maxine, who's extraordinary. We had done, so Amy Poehler and I, who again is somebody I'd known for like 25 years. It's, so even that was this sort of very personal thing. And so originally we had done this other failed series for NBC where I played Nadia and Ellen Burstyn played Ruth and Greta played my best friend and Marla Gibbs was in it and Fred Willard, and it was great. And I don't know why they didn't. But anyway, after that show didn't go, Amy said, what's the real show we would make with sort of like no limitations of essentially network? And that was sort of the early days of how Russian Doll came to be in its sort of final destined form. But especially in season 2, I guess, Charlie and I had gotten even closer. I knew Charlie through Samira Wiley from Orange is the New Black. And Charlie was the best man at her wedding. And we all had this wild weekend together in Miami for her bachelorette party. And Charlie and I got really close. And so when, originally when we pitched the show, there was no Alan character. And once Alan sort of like came into being in the writer's room, it was like, I think it's Charlie. It's like, you know what I mean? Like it's Samira's friend. And this season, and, I would talk to Charlie. Now we were a lot closer. And I was like, are you cool with this? Do you like this idea of Agnes? And like, what do you think? Is it fun? If he's exploring like, sexuality and gender and these kinds of things. And does that make sense to you? And getting a lot of like, having him do a lot of sort of participating in that. And I said, I have Chloe. Sorry, this is a very long answer, but it's a long way of saying that because I had Chloe, where we have all this kind of built-in history. So like in the frame, I believe you feel that, that chemistry, and it makes small moments very complete somehow. And I said, who's your Agnes? And he said, Carol Michelle Smith, who's his friend from Juilliard. And so we met with her. And so just to say, I do think, I believe in all that kind of stuff, I guess. And, I love that part of it. Like it's really the sort of the show on some level is about chosen family and that we can't get through this thing alone. And so we try to make the show feel like that, I guess.
It's very theater troupy. It's just picking people up along the way. I love that.
Yeah.
And you know where they might fit in someday.
Yeah. And it's funny because even like Elizabeth Ashley, was so extraordinary. And Ruth, I met her at it was like Lou Reed's memorial service, and it was pouring rain. And of course I knew her from her work, and I think I'd seen her in other desert cities not too long before this. And there was this woman like smoking under a canopy and like the pouring rain at Lincoln Center outside, where Laurie Anderson was playing music, and we were getting up and we were reading. I read Coney Island Baby, and it was like all these amazing people like Steve Buscemi and Willem Dafoe were there. And I went and I like under the canopy with this woman who started like, yeah, this is a lot of rain. It's a lot of rain for today, but maybe Lou would have liked it. And I was like, holy tamale, that's Ruth. It's a funny thing, this show. It really is.
Knowing Chloe so well, I love this dynamic where, as a director, especially, you're watching Chloe play Nora while you're also embodying Nora. I'm curious if you sort of had discussions about not to say that like you're doing an imitation of her, but there's definitely some shared DNA. Did you sort of talk about, the way Nora would carry herself, or did you study Chloe?
Yeah. And I would say vice versa, because in many ways, it's really that onus falls on her, since, we're always with Nadia. So it's Nadia is who we're seeing. So she doesn't really have to change very much. It's really on, Chloe, who does such a beautiful job being a little bit more, and she's been watching me like walk into the street, hailing taxis while looking in the wrong direction for, like 2 decades, almost 3 now. So I think, smoking all the time, cursing, and this kind of game. And I think she did a beautiful job of it. But a lot of it was also, directorially, it's a lot of kind of storyboarding, and sort of Diane Lederman, our wonderful production designer, sort of, like building double sets and everything so you can play the mirror games. And then a lot of, Frila Pantinkos, our cinematographer, that you're doing a lot of in-camera tricks. So we're not just acting in kind of green screen worlds. And it was really great though, because Chloe is so meticulous. Like definitely I'm the messy one in our odd couple. And so, she was very good at being very exacting. And also, she's grown into a director herself. And so, we would very much like map out, okay, and this is the eyes, and now we're going for the stomach and all this kind of stuff.
This show is so funny, but obviously you're tackling these really tough topics, and, the generational trauma, especially in season 2. I'm curious how you find that balance, or if it's even conscious. I mean, life, even the tragic parts of it are funny, but in the writer's room, are you making an effort to sort of be like, we have to have some levity here, while also dealing with this heartbreaking, soul crushing moment?
Yeah, I guess it's funny. I see it all as one big thing, and I love jokes. I personally believe, like, I believe in them almost like a religion or something, I mean, obviously I'm somebody who's had a lot of experience. Like, I kind of believe in jokes and science. Like, those are my 2 kinks. And I guess I have had so much experience with altered states in my life. And, I don't really get to play with that anymore, I guess, because of karmic consequences. But there's like early on into, leaving behind all my LSD and tricks, I realized that if you were like doubled over laughing hysterically, like something actually shifted in the air. And it's insane that happens. And that shift can actually like completely reorient your entire perspective on a situation, because suddenly you have more space to kind of process your reality, because you have a greater understanding of the sort of the absurd setup of the whole game. Like, we go through this life and we want so badly to get it right, but we're up against this ticking clock, and no one gets out of here alive. And Yet for some reason, we've all made an agreement to take it so, so seriously. Like the stakes have never been higher. And you send a text message and you know it was wrong and you're freaking out inside and you want to die. And it's weird that that's like that. And it's really only, to me, through jokes that you can experience sort of the absurdity of the whole game that sort of levels it, so I love it. I love that. And, of course, I love like so much like a Giulietta Messina kind of Fellini sort of clown who inherently is a bit of both. Maybe I spent too much time with like Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd and Charlie Chaplin and really sort of, watching them and like Clara Bow trying to do talkies. And I think there's something very fun about that. Like, mix essentially of almost, melodrama with a silent clown or something. I don't know how to describe it exactly.
I think you just described it perfectly. In addition to all the great female actors in front of the camera, the show has a lot of women working behind the scenes. Again, I don't know if that was a conscious choice, if you wanted to have this series come from a very female perspective. Obviously, with the creators, that's already there, but it's so impressive. And I'm wondering, not to boil it down so simply, but does it feel different from other sets?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's okay. So this character is really, it's inherently sort of, a Philip Marlowe type of a character, right? So you've got Elliot Gould and Robert Altman's Long Goodbye, and you've got the cat, our little friend Oatmeal, and you got all this mumbling. And I love my friend Peter Falk, not my friend, but in my mind. And you sort of got this kind of on the case, but she's on her own case. And there is something inherently, historically, stereotypically, that archetype is gendered male. And I think I really came up in this self-taught way. I loved Jessica Lange Francis, and I loved Betty Davis, but I loved Barbara Sandwick. But more than that, I identified for some reason with like, oh, who's this guy, Gene Hackman? I think maybe that's a shtick I could do. Or what's this, who's this guy, Dustin Hoffman, a Midnight Cowboy? Oh, I like that Ratso part. You know what I mean? And in a weird way, like the John Voight was sort of like the pretty girl, you know what I mean? And especially as a teenager, that was sort of like, the cute, like whatever, the blonde chick or whatever who was lanky. And they let me know in this business early days that I had an accent. I really have seen some old audition tapes. I'm wearing like a mock turtleneck like this, but my hair isn't really done. And I'm in there and I'm auditioning. You know what I mean? And I'm talking about punch him with the left and you hit him with the right. And in the same old audition tapes, there's like something of Uma Thurman. And then she comes on and she's just like this creature. And I was like, oh, I see. That's why I wasn't getting those parts. That's okay. We figured it out. But just to say that this character was always a bit hero's journey by way of classic male 70s trope actor, almost a little bit of Sylvester Stallone, Rocky in there, a little, you know what I mean? That was the name of the game. So accidentally, we found ourselves, like, I think we were one writer short in season 1. And we were suddenly like, wait a minute, are we about to have maybe the first all-female writers' room? Well, screw it. Let's just go for it. And the trick of it, so we did it again in season 2. And usually we do actually read sort of like submissions from also men, but it just sort of, for some reason, ends up organically wanting that. And I think the reason, oddly, is we're not seeing it as gendered. So we're sort of, you're bypassing this whole, sort of wasted time explaining why the character doesn't need to prove that she's good at her job or actually meet a guy at a coffee shop or, like, is she going to be cute? Or maybe she should change her blouses or like, we always keep her in like a uniform the whole time. She's just doing all kind of scumbag things. I don't think you've ever seen this character take a shower. Thank God. I mean, just a lot of stuff that we don't get bogged down with so we can actually spend time focusing on the heart of the matter.
I always feel a little guilty asking this because you've just put out season 2 of this amazing series, and I know it was so much work, but has there been talks about a season 3? Would you be up for it, or are you spinning ideas?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly how we pitched it, and there's definitely ideas there, and I'm not in charge. You know what I mean? I'm grateful that they let us make this thing, and it's in a way, I guess, like counter programming this show. It's definitely asking a lot of, big questions, and I'm grateful that people are on that ride with us. But yeah, I'm just not in charge.
Well, I'm curious because there's so much that starts in season 1 that actually pays off in season 2. And I'm curious if it was always mapped out in your mind, if you always knew how season 2 was going to end and you were building it even there. So you might be planting things for future seasons now.
Yeah, there's certainly, I would say, a sufficient amount of Easter eggs that are sort of, meant to be set up and knocked down. And so, but we also, I think, always saw the show as somewhat anthological in terms of creating these sort of standalone pieces rather than, a traditional sort of sitcom. Like essentially that this character would allow us to kind of, be an avatar to sort of take us where we wanted to go creatively, rather than sort of being beholden to anything at all. In many ways, it's a show about a haunting. And where so like our locations are haunted, and they're inherently their own time loops, and our characters are. Early days, kind of the pitches weirdly had season 2 with me playing, my mom in an 80s story, but there was no sort of like time travel element, and there was no quantum leap element. It was just, I had a new name, and, my name would have been Lenora, and we sort of had this vague sense of almost like a Cookie Mueller, downtown New York, Tompkins adjacent, gentrification of the neighborhood, and kind of her walking around doing stuff. And all of the other characters would have played other people with other names doing other things. And it just felt after season 1, like, oh my God, I'm not ready to let go of Maxine. I'm not ready to let go of Alan. I'm not ready to let go of Ruth. I'm not ready to let go of Lizzie and Horse and Nadia. So I think that, but the idea was never to sort of say, we should do in season 2, go back to the party and she can keep dying. Maybe she can get hit by a taxi again. I don't think that was ever in discussion.
Was there a moment where you sort of realized that the first season had become such a part of like the pop culture vernacular? Like maybe when you saw the Simpsons parody, or probably even before that, because they take a little while to animate. Maybe you just started hearing the song "Gotta Get Up" everywhere again.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was wild. It's very interesting to be such a marathon man in this business of ours, because like I said, I mean, I guess I got my SAG card in like 1984 or 85, and I was not a child star. I was like a working child actor. You know what I mean? I was like a workhorse, and of course I've had like some real pops and moments, but it was interesting to sort of see Russian Doll, because it was just so zeitgeist, and also almost on a deeper level. Maybe what I'm saying is, I guess I didn't know all those years that it was okay to sort of like reveal so much of myself, and that was going to be safe or something. I think probably because, I was obviously like a weirdo in high school, and like a single mom and all this stuff. And I was a scholarship kid. And so I think I was made to feel very sort of like outsider complex. And, the show is very outsider, very much, it's a full underground season. And we love that kind of like outside art, underground nature of it. But it was interesting to see that it resonated with so many people. And I think that was sort of like emotionally the bigger event on a human level or something that I was very moved by. Like weirdly, Orange is the New Black was a really beautiful setup for that because, there was such bad, like, neon overhead prison lighting all the time and our uniforms. And I think we got really used to just kind of, it was like you can walk around and be yourself. And of course, like the big, evolution is like the idea of autonomy is huge. Like, so, it's a really like, dark thing in this business that, for us as actors, it's like we have to be chosen. Otherwise, we don't get to show our trade, and that like we have to like walk around and wake up and go to sleep like so heartbroken of like, I've got this thing, like, I might cry. It's emotional, like just to, but like, like, let me show you my wares, I promise. And it's like circumstances have to collide so intensely and you've got to do so much, like, just like, there was just so much, especially in like my round 2 of sort of, like post sort of like 90s, failed ingenue kind of returning to the biz. And there's a lot of like, I would do like one line in a sitcom or something. And everybody would be like, wow, you did good. And I'd be like, yeah, like I used to do this, and it would just feel so confusing, but I would try to be really like appreciative, and sorry, it's a long way of saying that it's the big, event for me with season 1 of Russian Doll. I was like, yeah, it's very Sally Field. It's very like, holy shit, they like me. They really like me or whatever, because I just didn't know that like, all those ways in which I kept leaning into saying, but I would like to do it this way. I think that this has not been done yet. And I would like to do it like this. Is that all right? And, that it paid off.
I mean, there's more outsiders than insiders, so I'm not surprised that it was so widely embraced. And I want to remind everyone watching at home, you can see all the episodes of both seasons 1 and 2 on Netflix now. On behalf of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, I want to thank you so much for sharing your journey, your process, and your light with your fellow performers. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.